Hi there, my name's Aaron, and I'm going to tell you a little story about my brother Moses. Before we get to him, let's start at the beginning. So at the beginning, God created the whole world and the heavens and the earth, and he created Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, they sinned, and that was sad. And then they got kicked out of the garden, and the garden had a tree of life, and it had a river running through it, and they got kicked out of it, and that was a bad thing. And then sin got even worse, and then God sent a flood, and Noah saved a few people, well, at least his family, and then people grew, and then God was like, you know what, I'm going to make the promise through one person to save the world, and he chose Abram. And Abram became Abraham, and God made those promises that he'd have a son, and then that son had kids, and then there was more kids, and the promise continued, and then there was a man named Joseph, and he was not liked by his brothers. So they sold him into slavery, and that's not a good thing. And they told his dad he was dead. But he actually was in Egypt, and he became a powerful person there. So powerful that when there was a drought and a famine in Israel, Joseph had an abundance of food. So the people in Israel, his brothers, they went to Egypt and were like, oh man, can we have some of your food? But they didn't even realize that it was Joseph. And then Joseph was like, hey, it's me. And for what the things that you did, God made for good. So that is how the Israelites ended up in Egypt. Now let's get back to my brother Moses. But let's go a little bit further back from this story, back to when he was a baby.
Where?
So baby Moses was thrown in a basket, and then he was saved by Pharaoh's daughter, and he was raised in the palace, and he was kind of a big deal. But he still knew that he was part of the Israelites, and one day, because at this point the Israelites were in slavery. They had been slaves for 400 years in Egypt. Moses tried to take some of it into his own hands when he saw an Egyptian being not very nice to an Israelite. So he went and he said,
"Hey, stop that!"
And he murdered the Egyptian. So then he ran away for a time, and then God showed up to him in a burning bush and said, Moses, you are going to be the one that sets my people free. And he was like, no, I don't want to do it. And he was like, oh, but you need to do it. And Moses was like, but I don't want to do it. And eventually God was like, hey, we'll make sure that Aaron goes with you, because I'm Aaron. And Moses returned to Egypt. But now Moses was an old man. Yep, there he is, an old man. And he went to Pharaoh, and he did all these miraculous signs, and then God sent 10 plagues so that the Pharaoh would free the Israelites. And Moses told Pharaoh,
"Let my people go."
And Pharaoh did. But Pharaoh was not very happy with that. So then there was the crossing of the Red Sea. And he used his staff to split the sea open. And then all of Pharaoh's people, when the waters came crashing down, were drowned. And then the people were complaining, because they're always complaining. And then they went and walked in the desert. Until eventually they came to Mount Sinai. And Moses climbed up the mountain to talk to God. And there was thunder. Can I get some thunder? And there was lightning. And God spoke from the top of the mountain, and he delivered to Moses the 10 Commandments, but he gave them even more rules to follow, and after giving those rules, Moses received them written down on 2 tablets. Now the people, they had to wait. And like I said, the Israelites are all about complaining. So while Moses was up on the mountain, this is where it doesn't get very good for Aaron. While Moses was up on the mountain, the people convinced me to have them all melt down their stuff. And we made a god out of a gold. And we made a god. And we worshipped it. And the first commandment is, thou shalt not have any other gods before me. So Moses came down from the mountain and saw what the people were doing, and that they were worshiping this other god. And Moses was angry, and he threw the 10 Commandments down. Now God could have given up on the people. He could have given up on Moses. But God keeps his promises. So even though the people were not good waiters, and even though they had to wait for 400 years before they could be freed from slavery, and even though they had to wander for 40 years before they could get the promised land, God kept his promises to them.